Good evening, and welcome to the Ogden City Council meeting for February 26, 2013. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present with the exception of Councilmember Gochner and Chair Blair, who have both asked to be excused tonight. And at this time, we'll have Councilmember Wicks lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Me. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is a moment of silence. Thank you. Up next is a request to be on the agenda. It's my pleasure to introduce Anna Guyman from the Weber Morgan Health Department to discuss the Utah Indoor Clean Air Act. There's been a few changes this past year, and the Health Department's communication plan and the department's enforcement protocol. So Anna, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening, and I appreciate you allowing me some time on the agenda to just update you on some of these amendments. So as Councilman Garner indicated, I work for the Weber Morgan Health Department in the Tobacco Prevention and Control Program, and I've been in that program for the last 6 years, and part of my job is to work with businesses on the Utah Indoor Clean Air Act compliance. So during the last legislative session, some amendments were passed to the Indoor Clean Air Act to include electronic cigarettes and hookah. So use of these products is now prohibited in indoor public places. And because there are so many indoor public places, we devised a communication plan. I think all of you have had the opportunity probably to review that briefly. And it just outlines some goals and the different audiences that we are trying to communicate the new rules for the Indoor Clean Air Act to, and primarily businesses. So we obtained the database from the Department of Workforce Services, and we mailed out a fact sheet and the new updated signs to every existing business in Weber and Morgan counties. So there were about 5,000 that went out. And we realized that there may be some gaps in that database, and so something that we are also doing is meeting with each city's business licensing office to ensure that each city has enough signage to mail out either with business license renewals or with business license applications. So far, the response from businesses has been extremely positive in this educational outreach. We've received requests from about 20 different businesses for more materials, and most of them are here in Ogden. So they're pretty empowered by receiving this information. We feel it's very proactive. We've also taken a proactive approach to educating law enforcement. And then there are several agencies and institutions in the community that we're working with on this as well. One of our partners is UTA, and with me here tonight is Bart Dean representing UTA. And they are actually posting signs at the Ogden Transit Center. And Bart just informed me that they will be posting decals at every bus stop in Weber and Morgan counties to inform the public of this. So there are many things that we're doing to get the word out so that the general public is aware, that elected officials are aware, that employers are aware. And we're really very interested in helping everyone to be compliant with this. So are there any questions on the communication plan? Okay. Lastly, I would just kind of like to talk with you about enforcement of the Indoor Clean Air Act. That's a question that a lot of businesses especially have. And the way that it works is when we receive a phone call, a complaint about a violation for the Indoor Clean Air Act, we typically contact the business owner, and I say we, I mean someone from my department, so Tobacco Prevention and Control, and then also from our Environmental Health Division. We'll contact the business owner and set up a meeting with that business owner, and then we'll go out to the business site and we'll just kind of evaluate if there is enough signage, you know, so that customers and patrons are aware of the Indoor Clean Air Act, and we try to just help that business become compliant. If we receive a secondary complaint after that, then we issue an order to comply. And that's usually not the case. I mean, we do try to work our very best to help businesses be compliant. But with that order to comply, that's issued by our Environmental Health Division, and that just lets the business owner know that they have a certain amount of time to become in compliance. And usually that just involves signage. After that time, if there's a refusal to be compliant, there are some monetary penalties that could be levied toward the business owner. And in the time that I have been doing this, in the last 6 years, we've never once had to issue those or, you know, have those monetary penalties levied. So, any questions for me on how we enforce the act?
Questions? Good.
Okay. Well, thank you so very much for your time.
Anna, before you leave, maybe we can invite Mr. Dean to come up too and just briefly talk about how this is going to be implemented at the bus stops, how we're doing that, the plan for UTA. We can just touch on that briefly.
My name is Bart Dean. I am with Utah Transit Authority, and our policies are just newly formulated. They went through a legal review, and UTA has declared itself entirely a non-smoking area, so smoking is not allowed anywhere on UTA property. In the last few months, however, we asked for a variance to have one designated area at the transit center due to the number of smokers. We believe that this helped empower our people to enforce the no smoking policy. It is located in one of the drop-offs about 50 feet from the nearest facility. With regard to your question on the bus stops, we have recently purchased decals that will go on all bus stop signs. Due to the dispersion, it is not possible to conduct routine enforcement of these, so we rely on public information, and there are random events where our officers will be out enforcing. If they see that, they will enforce that policy. But right now, our resources restrict us to the transit center, where we have periodic shows of force, and we have issued citations in the past for that. When it gets a little bad, our customer service department notifies us, and we arrange to have another show of force. And usually that lasts for a few months, and that reduces the incidences of non-authorized smoking in our area. So as far as the bus stops, we really don't have the resources to do regular monitoring and enforcement. It's pretty much if they're seen, they will be warned, and if it's repeated, there will probably be a citation.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Any questions for Mr. Dean?
What about inside the bus for information?
Vehicles, again, UTA property, and our interpretation of the Clean Air Act, which has been validated, is that nowhere on UTA property, bus included. A bus is considered an enclosure. It's considered a building. It's just mobile. So on or and also smoking is not allowed within 25 feet of the bus door, just as though it were a building. And that also includes any standing area where people are waiting for a bus, like the bus bays, the bus stop.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dean. Appreciate the information. Thank you. Next is common consent, and we will entertain a motion to adopt the items on common consent.
Vice Chair Garner, I would make a motion that we adopt the common consent items, the first one being setting the public hearing for March 26th for the capital improvement plan, and the second item being appointing Councilmember Stevens to the Mosquito Abatement District.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Wicks and a second from Councilmember Heyer to adopt the items on common consent, and this is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember Van Hoosier?
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks?
Aye.
Acting Chair Garner?
Aye. Thank you. This is accepted. Next is administration reports. Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Cooper will start out the conversation, and I think Laurie Johnson will help him on the second item.
Mayor, Mr. Johnson, members of the council, good evening. Thank you for being here. Does this work here? Let me get some visual aid here. Let me preface my comments tonight by saying thank you for considering this resolution. We first approached you with this project back in April of 2012 with a bud of an idea for the mobile apps program. Since then, we have come a long way in terms of our scope and our vision for this project. It's definitely different than it once was. It's better, and it's really the culmination of a renewal of commitment between partners that are long overdue in coming together in the downtown area, those partners being Ogden City and Weber State University. So with that being said, I appreciate you considering somewhat of an out-of-process resolution to help us move this project forward and get the commitments that we need to secure the funding and begin construction on the facility. Here is a rendering of what the project will look like pending the construction that's scheduled and pending the securing of the appropriation of the funding. This is a little bit different than what the building looks like now. And I'll go into some of what the full scope of work consists of, but this is a building that was built in 1920. It is a strong building. It's 3 floors with a basement, and we will occupy all 3 floors. And so we'll have a significant remodel to the facade of the building, including new storefront, new windows, new treatments to the existing architecture, and as you can see, a proud and bold statement of the presence of Weber State University in our downtown area once again. We're excited about this version that we've come up with. It's taken us, again, a long time to kind of shape this vision, and we're very proud of the result. Let me give you a little background. I'll just leave that there. A little background on the project. Again, we approached you with the kernel idea back in April of 2012, and at that time, you appropriated funding to assist us in securing the funds necessary to acquire the building and to proceed with the program. The bulk of those funds came from the Economic Development Administration, and the appropriation that you folks made back then was for $500 in match funds. Those $500 were then split between construction funds and also scholarship funds. The mobile apps program consists of a layered program. One being facilities, so the availability and convenience of actual facilities for software developers to work in and to co-locate in and to collaborate in. In addition to that layer, there's an additional layer of funding that came in part by some of the money that you folks appropriated last April. And then there's also an additional layer of mentorship, and that comes from the presence of Weber State University, some of their staff, some of their programs that are being implemented into the overall concept. Our partner directly is Weber State University directly, and WSURF indirectly. They are the for-profit entity that manages Weber State's intellectual property and for-profit programs. And so they're our partner, and we have come a long way with the concept. We were successful in securing the $1 million from EDA through the grant match. We then were able to purchase the building with a portion of that funding source. And then at that time, back last year, we were looking at a construction budget of roughly the remaining amount of the $1 million plus roughly another $50,000 to $100,000. After further review between our partners and ourselves, we decided that this opportunity was too big to miss. We had one opportunity and one chance to really knock the ball out of this park, so to speak, and to bring that university presence downtown as it once existed. And so through analysis with the university and their facilities management people, ourselves, we were able to develop a full scope of work which exceeded significantly our original funding sources and our original vision that we had for the project. Let me go over some of those changes with you now. One of those changes includes this facade remodel. At the point that we started, we had no indication or no intent of remodeling the facade. It had some improvements, basic, albeit improvements done to it in a few years prior, and we felt that those were sufficient to allow occupancy. But it didn't bring the overall vision to pass in terms of establishing a premier location with the branding of Weber State University. And so we opted to bring in some historical architecture. Some of the things that you see on the bottom here are reminiscent of some of the old buildings that Weber State once occupied in the downtown area, and so we tried to include some of that architecture as well as these columns. Obviously the traditional branding for Weber State and the W. Some of the other elements of the building are existing that we wanted to maintain. This cornice up here is again reminiscent, as is this detail here, of some of the architecture that once existed on, and still exists on, once occupied Weber State buildings. So that was a determination that we made in terms of additional scope. With the development of the program, we at first never really conceived of anything but a mentoring location, so a co-working facility, executive office space, a facility that people could come and work. It was through the process of analysis that we determined that having the Weber State bookstore locate a satellite location here was a great benefit not only to the project, but to also those folks in the downtown area, where they could come and essentially buy everything that they can buy at the Weber State bookstore on campus. And so the bookstore occupies the bulk of this space here. This is more back office stuff with storage and, and some bathrooms and things like that. This is really the bookstore. And this space was added through our additional analysis. We realized that with the programs and the things that were happening on the upper two floors, we would need some gathering space here. We would need a common vestibule, and then we would also need a cafe. And so the cafe is a welcomed addition because, again, it will be able to serve the patrons of the bookstore. It'll be able to serve those software developers that are spending long hours and long nights there. It would also be open to the public, so as you're walking down the street or maybe working next door in Zions Bank and you want to grab a bagel, you'll be able to come next door and pick that up. And so this was a significant change for the better from our original idea of what the mobile apps program would be. Here's a 3D rendering of that same space. Might be a little bit easier to pick up. So the Washington level is here. So you'd walk in the front door, there'll be a common vestibule. You'll be able to come in through this door here into the meeting space. You'll be able to go into this door into the cafe. And this is locked off and separate from the bookstore and the upper floors so that it can be maintained at different operating hours than the rest of the space. There's roll-up doors here that allow this space to be connected, so you'd be able to come in and have gatherings, events, all kinds of things that we have planned for this space. And then again, this is a traditional retail environment where you'd have product displayed on tables and walls and things like that. It would this bookstore would again bring in some electronic products. They'd also bring in branded Weber State products, things like that. And then this back area is mainly back office, as I mentioned.
Brandon, before you pull that picture off, just the staircase that's there on the first floor, that takes up to the second floor. Is there ADA accessibility for the second and third floor?
It's a good question. That was another addition that we made through the process of evaluation. The way that we had the building separated wasn't cohesive. It was really 3 separate buildings, and we were able to deal with ADA that way. Once we connected the whole building and really made it a cohesive use that could be synergistic, we realized there was a need for an elevator. So the elevator actually is located back here. So we'll have ADA access throughout the whole building.
Thank you.
How much does that add to the cost to put in the elevator?
3-stop elevator, 3-stop elevator is about $170,000 in this building because of the age of the building and the construction. This is the second floor, so this is accessible from the rear of the building, from up on 23rd and around the corner. This is a space that is going to be used for educational purposes. Our partner in WeSurf has been able to partner with a bunch of third-party event people in terms of the electronics associations and the software development associations, and so everyone's excited to have their annual events here and to do those things. This space is designed for that. There's a conference room, there's a classroom, a training classroom where Weber State University Continuing Education would train out of. There's some bathrooms and then some open space to allow for larger groups and some of those third-party events to come and to rent the space and to be able to hold their events there. And then there's just some open seating, and there's the elevator again coming from the first floor. We will have access, multiple accesses. There's a stairwell here, there's an elevator, there's also a rear stairwell here, and then you'll be able to go out the back at grade to parking.
How much parking is available to this project?
Associated with the property directly, there's only 2 stalls. We have worked out an arrangement with the adjacent property owner where the bulk of the stalls are that are connected to the building. So we have worked out an arrangement with them. We also have some stalls that we lease across 23rd. So all in all, I think we'll have close to 70 stalls. And then not including parking on Washington and across the street at the junction, which we hope would happen. We would hope that folks would use the junction parking, be able to walk across the street, participate in these programs and these events, and then walk back and enjoy the amenities at the junction. So this, again, is a 3D rendering of the second floor showing the conference room, the training space, and some of the other spots that we talked about. This is the third and final floor, which essentially it consists of a stairwell, an elevator, some restrooms, and then open floor plan. So this, again, and let me comment that this is not an unprecedented type of an environment. These accelerators and co-working spaces exist all throughout the country. In fact, we modeled this after one of the best-known ones that is in New York City. And so there's some tried and true principles that we've tried to incorporate into the space. And one of them is this membership space. So again, it's just an open floor plan. It's geared to developers, freelancers, people that work from home traditionally. They would pay a monthly membership and be able to come to a space where other adults are, where you can collaborate, have use of the facilities, free Wi-Fi, free printing. It's a collaboration space. If you've ever worked from home, that doesn't always work for everyone all the time. And so these types of spaces are becoming very popular, where you're not renting an office or an executive suite. You can turn it off and turn it on as you see fit. It's like a gym membership. You pay $20 a month and you can have access to the building 24/7. So that's primarily what this location is. And again, they interact synergistically between all 3 floors. The same people that will use this building will participate in continuing education. The same folks that are shopping down on the first floor will participate on the 3rd floor in the co-working space. So it's a synergistic use, which is somewhat different than what we identified at the onset of the project.
Would Weber State manage the membership? program then?
Correct. So Ogden City would act as the building landlord. Startup Ogden, which is an entity of WSURF, would act as the management group, and they would operate the building, they would manage the leases, they would take care of the facilities, things like that.
Brandon, I'm kind of curious about, since this is a historic building in downtown, on the interiors of the building, are we keeping the floors that are there, or how, are we really just gutting the whole building and starting over, or are we going to use some of the floor plans and work with that?
The building is a post and beam construction, so there's big wooden timbers and beams holding the building together with a brick facade. All of that has been sandblasted and restored to its original condition. It's gorgeous. Most of the floors are not able to be saved. The first floor Washington level is, so we're resanding and filling that. The other 2 floors will be replaced, but with historic appropriate type of materials. All of the interior walls, except for the new walls that we construct, sheetrock walls, will be the exposed brick. The ceilings will be exposed. So we're trying to maintain the character of the building, which is one of the reasons why people want to come here and participate.
Can you give us a timetable of where, I imagine we're in construction now, how long will that last, and then our opening date projections?
We're actually not in construction because this is a step towards that goal. We aren't able to proceed with construction until we have commitments from all the funding sources, Ogden City being one of them. Weber State has committed to their funding source, and I'll go over that in just a moment. As soon as we receive commitment, if that's the case, then construction would start immediately, meaning next week, and we anticipate 5.5 months of construction. With a kickoff, with some type of a kickoff event at the end of construction.
So we're looking 6 months down the road then?
Yeah.
So the hope is to have it open in time for the new school year?
Yep, exactly. So again, Resolution 2013-4 is what is before you for consideration, and what that says is essentially requesting an additional $100,000 in funding for the project, on top of the $500,000 that you've already appropriated, and also it mentions the reappropriation of $100,000 of the existing $500,000 that was previously appropriated to be taken from the scholarship fund to the building construction fund. Let me cover that in this spreadsheet here. I don't know if you can zoom in on that. I have good eyesight and I can't even see that. There we go, thank you. So you'll see that we had original appropriation of $1 million from EDA. If you jump down a line to Ogden City FY 2012 contribution, that was part of our match, $430,000 there, and then a separate contribution of $70,000 equaling the $500,000, $285,000 of which were allocated for building renovations, and $215,000 were allocated for scholarship and loans to cover the mentoring part of the program. What we're asking for through this resolution is another $100,000 to kind of round off some of the overages that we've experienced, and I'll explain how that dovetails into what I mentioned previously. And then again, the reallocation of the $100,000 that was appropriated here, reallocated back to the budget fund, or to the building fund. So it would be $100,000 in new money, and then the reallocation of $100,000 that has previously been appropriated. As we previously mentioned, there has been a revision and a growth in this process, and as we've realized that, we have come to the condition of the plans that I've presented to you tonight. We bid those plans, and the original budget that we had set prior to bid and the bid numbers that came in were drastically different, to the tune of almost $700,000. Weber State, through coordination with their people, were able to come up with almost $600,000 of that, or excuse me, $500,000 of those dollars, requesting that we reappropriate $100,000 out of the scholarship and come up with a $100,000 additional money to close the gap. You can see that that would put us in that event. That would put us at $1.6 million from our side, $1 million of that coming from EDA and $600,000 coming from city funds, and that would put the university at 1.637 through those sources that they've identified. They have worked long and hard. You can see corralling and scraping up every dime, to the point where they went to EDCU for $100,000, and the state was so excited about this project that they were willing to commit $100,000 there as well. So there has been a strong effort from Weber State. They believe in the project. They believe in, most importantly, the renewed relationship with Ogden City. I think that's what excites them the most. They're willing to put their money behind their brand, and they're excited about reestablishing that presence in the downtown area. We agree with them, and we've worked long and hard to make this a project that works not only for them but for the citizens of Ogden and with our programs. And we hope that you feel the same, and we recommend that you approve Resolution 2013-4. Thank you.
Do we have any projected revenue that we'd receive from this project, or is that too early to anticipate? Or?
We do have some predicted revenues. There is a job creation component and a revenue-based component. I'm not entirely up on that side of the program. That would be Terrence Bride. I could find out that information and get back to you. I would hate to speak out of turn.
Okay.
Could you give us a little overview of the scholarship fund so that people understand we're not taking money away from students?
Sure. Are you up here to do that?
I can do that.
Okay.
Okay.
The scholarship fund is seeded by our money, and then it's publicly financed from there on. To answer your question, this is what we call an evergreening project. The seed money that we put in now is basically to start it, and the rest of the funds come from the software development and from that, the WSURF money that they go out and it is vested in then those apps that are bought by private sector companies. So the app accelerator, if everything holds to it, they'll basically go ahead and create the revenues and generate enough scholarships and internal scholarships to keep running the program and to grow it over time. And that was the original design that we presented a few years back. Or seems like a few years, 2 years back.
So it's self-sufficient is what you're saying?
Yeah, and that's the term we use is evergreening, and which means that it comes back and stays and renews itself. And so we're just getting it started, and then the university pitches in. And that's one of the reasons that the state got behind it and it's excited, is because as the model grows, it basically provides an ability to keep providing a different application development, but also other software and other technical development as the markets change and grow. So we've looked at it that way.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, and at this time we'll receive public input regarding the Resolution 2013-4. Okay. Further discussion?
I would list, it's unusual circumstances that we're in, but I think the importance of the mobile app in Ogden City is vital to our growth of our city and the revitalization, and also it enhances our opportunity to become more of a college town. And I'm pleased to see that Weber State is in for 1.6 million. It shows that they believe in the project, and I believe that this is an opportunity to have Weber State in the center part of Ogden.
And just to second this a little bit, it's been a long time since we've had continuing education opportunities in the downtown area, and I really do believe this is a valuable thing for the citizens, especially within the inner city of Ogden. And to have that collaboration with Weber State and their presence in the downtown, I think will just be a great economic boost for our city too.
And I think, I recognize the challenges you face with renovating a historic building. Things never are what you expect them to be with that. Working with Weber State and the various partners, I realize is difficult too. Normally I'd have a lot of heartburn over putting the cart before the horse, but with this, I think we really have no choice. And I think you've worked hard to try to bring the pieces into place as they needed to be, but with deadlines and wanting to get it finished before the school year starts and lining up all the things, I recognize those difficulties.
I appreciate the fact that we're saving a historic building, in our downtown, and that it's creeping across the street on the east side of Washington Boulevard. So I think it's an outstanding project.
I hope it's so successful we'll have to look for more parking someplace down the road.
Ready for motion? Yes. Well, then I would move that we adopt Resolution 2013-4.
I'll second it.
We have a motion from Councilmember Heyer and a second from Councilmember Van Hooser to adopt proposed resolution 2013-4. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember Van Hooser?
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Acting Chair Gardner?
Aye. This passes. Thank you. Next is proposed ordinance 2013-9 to amend the budget to reappropriate some funds.
I would make the motion that we set the public hearing for March 26th.
I second it.
We have a motion from Councilmember Wicks and a second from Councilmember Stevens to set the public hearing for March 26, 2013. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next on the agenda is public comments. This is an opportunity to address the council regarding your concerns or ideas. Please state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. In this form of government, all city personnel are the responsibility of the administration, not of the council. Please discuss any concerns you may have regarding staff with the mayor, chief administrative officer, or department directors.
My name is Kevin Irons, and I live at Tyler Avenue in Ogden. And the reason why I was arrested at the Ogden City Justice Court is because I made a complaint against a police officer to the police station. And I went through the complaint form and did it, like I was supposed to. I went there, and it says that it's to provide a uniform, impartial, expeditious processing of citizens' complaints. That didn't happen. And B, it says it's to promote uniform interpretation and compliance by employees with all laws and rules and regulations. That didn't happen. When I talked to Assistant Police Chief Eric Young, he gave me an answer on his findings, and I told him that I wasn't satisfied with it. And in the back of the form, it says that if the investigation cannot be resolved, the facts at the issues and complaints, and the employee may then be requested to submit to a polygraph. I asked the chief to have him submit to a polygraph, and he said that wasn't going to happen. I think that the complaint system is broken, and there needs to be a civilian review board to handle complaints at the police department. And also, the editorial satire that the Standard Examiner displayed about the crossing on Washington Boulevard was disgraceful. If you need to, instead of patrolling my neighborhood, maybe put a cop on Wall Avenue where people are dying. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Irons.
Council,
My name is Alonso Garcia. I stay at 137 West Bensford. I came here on the first Tuesday. I came here on the first Tuesday, January 2013. I asked for assistance in aiding the people that crossed wall between 25th and 29th. I informed the council of the problem of wall being a drag strip kill zone. I asked members of the council to come on a Saturday night around 3 p.m. to 5 when we gather for chili dogs and hot drinks that are brought by other organizations. My goal was so the council could meet the people that come to this gathering to see that we are not such bad people, to see that we do care for each other as a family. Also to see the speeding that goes on wall. I stated that citing us for jaywalking is a waste of money and time, for most of all that are cited don't or won't spend the money for such a joke, which means we go to jail for the citation and the warrant for failure to appear. The tickets issued should be for speeding vehicles that have no regard for the pedestrian traffic, which in itself would pay for the assistance to pedestrian traffic on wall, and still a lot left for the council to brood upon. I also gave the council an idea of the amount of people that use these intersections to gain service from the shelters. And since then, at least 3 people I know of have received citations for jaywalking, one for crossing at 27th and Wall intersection, and the other 2 for crossing at Benford to West Benford intersection. The officers state that we are to cross at 25th and 29th Street traffic lights. I pray that hopefully the council will take this more serious enough to see that in God's eyes we are still a part of a Christian-based community, one that Jesus would pray for our safety. Does it really have to take the life of at least one person here to get the council attention? For the past 5 years, someone has died on this kill zone. This year, we're getting a restart. It's only February. I'm asking for a crosswalk on 27th and Wall similar to the crosswalks and flags Ogden has posted between 26th and 26th on Washington at the crosswalks in the middle of these blocks. And would it come to a point that we make our own crosswalk and supply our own flags? And where's the council member who's elected to represent this community? Well, why don't we get support from there? So I'm asking again, there has to be more than just a so-called investigation. For that much effort, we might as well park an ambulance or a hearse nearby. The investigation is underway with evidence of 2 good men that have been killed in 2 months' time. And with that rate, I figure 6 in a year. The rumor is 7 people have to die before Ogden gets IDOT to look into the issue. And God have mercy on us, because it doesn't seem that the council seems to care. And if they did, there'd be evidence from the first time I came and asked in January 2013. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments? Okay, comments from administration.
Chair, before the mayor takes a minute, I just wanted to say we have taken seriously the Wall Avenue, and it is a state road. It's not our road. We can't necessarily change anything on that road, but UDOT said today that they will study and go from there, and that's a huge step for them to do that on their own and to be willing to move forward on that. So I don't know how long the study will take. The second thing is I will advise the chief. I will ask the chief to spend more time directing his officers down on the road to see if we can slow down the traffic. We might even move our speed sled down there so that people can see what their speed limit is and see if we can't slow things down. So we are working on it. UDOT is working on it. They're a big machine compared to our city, and they move a little much slower than we do, but we're grateful that they're willing to take a look at it and study it.
My question would be, though, can the council write a letter to UDOT and say, this is a serious issue for us, and it is for us. This is our time, and we're the ones that are sitting here taking this in, and the worry of that street.
It would be taken in their study. I would recommend it. I think it would be helpful.
Council needs to take a stand and say what.
I agree.
It's too important to wait for somebody else to die to get a street light or a crossing or markers or something.
Administration did that today with them, but it would be welcome to have your input with them. And the mayor had something else I just wanted to speak up.
I think anytime we can have a unified message and push, it really is effective. So I would certainly encourage that as well. And I think it's important to mention that we have been in contact with UDOT today, and they are funding a traffic study for that. It's not something we can go put lines in. We had an event in front of the theater on Washington Boulevard as well. So they've had a lot of conversation with us, and we are certainly looking at it. And you know, we are certainly sympathetic for your loss, and we'll continue to work on making sure that that is safe, and we'll do everything we can. Some of the immediate fixes, like the traffic sled, I think will bring people's attention. The crosswalk and some lighting, and those things just unfortunately take a little bit of time to get that complete. But gives a chance to work on that. Those wheels are in process right now.
We did mention it last week. We had a discussion with the mayor in a work session where we discussed the accident on Washington Boulevard, but the accident on Wall that happened over the holidays came up as well. So it's on our radar.
We're certainly not unsympathetic, because this is our community and our town.
Yeah, I was going to second in here. We are really communicating as a council and really concerned about this. Personally, I've been down to St. Anne's and to the rescue mission, and for many years have taken youth down there and other things. This is important to us, and we're going to do our best to work with UDOT and to work with the citizens of this community to make it safer.
Mr. Chair, I think we ought to instruct our staff to formulate a letter that we can send on to UDOT of our feelings with this.
I think that's a great idea, and as was suggested by Susie, we should do that.
And we should coordinate it with the administration in the same vein, you know, that.
Yeah, I think we can have it as a joint letter.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We've anticipated your request on this, and it's already in the process as well.
Okay. And further comments from administration?
Yeah, one last comment. We appreciate you being here and your concerns, and that's first and foremost. I also appreciated the support for this Weber State App Center and the work that Tom and his group have done with that. If they talk about it and it occurs, there'll be a lot of traffic going across Washington Boulevard. Washington and Wall are not the same traffic corridors they were 10 years ago, and we do have issues there that will be addressed. But I really appreciate Tom's group and the effort they've put into this and the recognition of those efforts and the uniqueness of this project that you guys have expressed tonight. I think it's going to be a real unique thing and a great thing for our downtown, and it will continue with the progress we've seen there. So thank you, Tom and company, and appreciate council support with this.
Thank you. And comments from council staff?
Nothing, thank you.
And further comments from council members?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion from Councilmember Wicks and a second from Councilmember Heyer to adjourn the City Council meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This is a reminder that a work session is going to be held in the council workroom immediately following this meeting, and the purpose of the work session is to discuss amendments to the annual action plan, the 2300 Fowler Avenue infill project, and the quarterly improvement plan and the second quarter budget report, and the financial CAFR. So thank you for all being here tonight.